All right, bro, we are live. What's up, beautiful people? Listen, y'all, we got a good video um tonight. Just again, impactful conversations. I started doing these impactful conversations a couple of weeks back. For all y'all who caught it, I had a impactful conversation with the coach and mentor out of Camden, New Jersey, who's doing some great things with the youth. And again, tonight, this is another great one. I've been looking forward to this before I ever had an idea that we would do any kind of discussion. Just an awesome brother that I've I see as one of my mentors told me to have two types of mentors: those that you see and talk to and connect with, and those that don't even know they're your mentor. In other words, that person that you look to and you can get information from, and they feed you and help you grow. But maybe y'all never met. Maybe they don't even know you're watching them. And this brother is one. So without further ado, man, I'm just excited about this. So I got with me tonight my brother Kirk Nugent, man. Introduce yourself, man. Tell the people a little bit about you, man, before we jump into it.
Mike, first of all, man, it's a pleasure to be here. You've supported me so many times on my channel, and now it's a pleasure for me to be here just to support you and to support your platform, what you have going on. My name is Kirk Nugent, like Captain Kirk Ted Nugent. I am a speaker, and I never consider myself a motivational speaker. People refer to me as a motivational speaker, but there's no place in any writing you'll see me referring to myself as a motivational speaker. And the reason being, Mike, is that many people motivated me. My dad motivated me with his belt. Teachers motivated me by threatening to fail me, and employers motivated me by threatening to fire me. So very few people in this life inspired me. And that's what I consider myself. I want to inspire people. So when I speak, I attempt to speak to the soul and the heart of others and to just be inspirational.
I love that. I love that. And already for just that introduction, man, and the way you put that, I hope that people can see that we're in for a treat tonight. That right there is so powerful because, like you said, I've been hearing that more often. So I feel like maybe there's a paradigm shift of how we're looking at things and even how we're saying things, right? I've heard a few people say that. It's interesting that you said that, like, listen, I don't want to motivate you. I want to inspire you. And when you said that, man, it resonated with me so much. When you said my dad motivated me with the belt, I was like, oh man. And that was the thing. My journey, I grew up Southern preacher kid. And so I knew two things: the belt and the Bible.
Wow.
I knew those things, and so I love the way you put that. And Kirk, man, you're so humble. I appreciate that, but man, you're a whole lot more than a speaker. Dynamic poet. Dynamic poet. I just wanted to throw that in there because, your poetry. I got a chance to witness you do some of your poetry just a couple of times on your videos, and I mean, just powerful. Powerful is the best way I can describe it. So yeah, man. So starting off at the top, we kind of talked about this and just wanting to do this video and just to have a conversation, right? About
Sure.
again, I put in the little description some things that you may think about, but you don't talk about, right? But before we go any further, man, of course, we just want to just give a smooth transition to DMX. We talked about it a little bit before we started, and just. A powerful figure beyond. This is going to be one of those that really he'll get the roses he deserved when he was on this side now, because people will really start to. It's interesting that you see the quotes and everything pop up when somebody has transitioned on, but when a lot of the quotes and we briefly talked about some of his prayers, when that starts to come to the surface, I think he'll be even more appreciated now. And so we definitely want to, just send our well wishes and our thoughts, positive energy, vibration to his family and just everyone around the world who was affected by that. So many different stories out there about actually what happened, but again, just a smooth transition to him.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you acknowledged it as well because DMX was such a powerful brother. And I always want to acknowledge the fact that he came from pain. A lot of our
Mm,
greatest artists come from pain, and that's what made them great. And Because we tend to only see the image that's on stage, we forgot what they overcame in order to come to us. And sometimes we can be very judgmental when it comes to looking down on someone where we have never walked in their shoes. We don't know what it's like. From my understanding, at some point, DMX was in a boys' home, and you never know what goes on in those homes. To feel like you're not loved by your very mother and your father, that's a trauma unless you're having psychological counseling. That's not a trauma that leaves easily. So every time you hear him in his prayer, he's reaching out to God and he's saying, forgive me or guide me, and the road is dark. And I believe that is just so inspirational. Again, there's that word, to so many people. So yeah, man, with DMX, safe journey, my brother, and rest well.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about that, and my brother and I, he was in town a few days ago, and we were just talking about DMX, and we were talking about our favorite DMX song, and he said one thing that always stuck with him was, "I'm slipping, I'm falling, I can't get up."
Yeah.
And you read through the lyrics, and it wasn't my favorite, but I just went back even when he said it and read through those lyrics, and I'm like, man, powerful. So, like you
Very
said, it was
powerful.
always this almost more so of a cry out.
Mhm.
Um, and I think a lot of people, the last that people seen him on a big stage was the versus battle.
Right.
And people were celebrating, and just excited to see him. But again, one thing we talked about before we started this too, you still, for me, I saw that pain. I saw
Mhm.
still that release that wasn't quite there, that was so
Mhm.
needed. And so, like you said, definitely wanted to acknowledge that. So, Kirk, you said something, man, when you were just talking, brother, on you talked about people judge will judge a situation or circumstance or a person and have no idea about their journey, no idea about where they came from. And so that was kind of a great way to kind of dive into the conversation, man. Because I was talking a few weeks back on a video, and I was just saying, you get to the point in life where you realize that the further you go on the journey, the less all the outside should matter in terms of, oh, Kirk, you got to think like me because I think this way. This is what I've learned. And I just want you to take a moment to, again, I just love your insight on everything, to speak to that, like the people who, especially when they start that journey, right? Because you get a new kind of zeal when you come into new knowledge and you learn things you never heard before. So it's like, now, man, I gotta get on the bullhorn, and I gotta tell you, hey, the way you're thinking, the way you're doing is wrong, and you gotta think like me, or it's this situation where it's friction there because I can't get you to see things like I see it. So speak to that a little bit, and like what you said with that judgment, no matter what the background be, and not just speaking on religion or spirituality, but just broadly, this whole idea of, it's almost like this inner, to me, I see it as an inner competition. You're
Mhm.
still battling something inside when you have to think like, I need everybody to think like me. So speak to that for a moment, like to just kick it off.
Mike, did you ever see the movie Training Day with Denzel Washington?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember the scene? It was early in the movie. He and his partner, Ethan Hawke, they ran upon some kids, and the kid was sitting on a wall, had some drugs, marijuana, right? And
Mhm.
when Denzel pulled them over, Ethan said, they're just college kids. And Denzel said, they're about to get an education today. Remember that?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
remember that scene? Right. So what I mean by they're about to get an education today, I'm about to go deep. You invited me, so we're just going to go in. So
Yes.
when you say speak to you on that subject, well, the first thing is that we as human beings have forgotten, and we've brainwashed into believing something different, is consciousness is the only cause. What I mean by consciousness is the only cause is in the Bible, it says everything is already created under the sun. There's nothing new, right? And you're like, well, that doesn't even make any sense because this, we have airplanes right now, and 200 years before we didn't have airplanes, and there's new things under the sun, but everything is consciousness. And consciousness is like you go into a warehouse and it's completely pitch black. And whatever you focus on, that becomes your reality. But other things exist in this side of the warehouse and that side of the warehouse. But if you're just focused here, that's all you see. So we're born into a society which is like the Matrix. And this society tells us how we ought to behave in order to appear successful. So go to school, get a good job, get a good education so you can be a good worker. And if you deviate from that path, most people are going to judge you and judge you very negatively until you get to a level where they see, oh, you're successful. In their mind, you're successful. In the Western world, Mike, success is judged by achievement. That's just a Western philosophy. If you go to South America, success is based on happiness. You see the grandmother and all the grandkids are around. She lives in a hut, but if she's happy and the grandkids are happy, she's successful. So the thing that we deal with here when it comes to judgment and people looking and frowning on us is because we've been disconnected from our true spirituality. When you get in touch with who you are, Mike, you stop caring about what someone else think about you because you know you're here for a journey and you know what you're here to do and you know your time is limited. So you understand that on this planet right now, there's a 7 billion piece puzzle and you're not trying to fit some other piece. You're just trying to be your piece. But everybody who's not, I don't want to use the term awake, everyone who's not aware that they are indeed consciousness will try to get you to fit into the mold. And they'll be threatened if you don't do what they do because they're coming from a place of scarcity and a place of fear. So if you don't behave the way that they behave, they'll be very threatening. Like you'll have a group of people say, well, you need to wear a mask. If you don't wear a mask, I'm going to get, ill. And then another group is saying, well, you don't need to wear a mask. And you wearing a mask is going to make the government control us more. Both people are coming from a place of fear. They're not allowing the other individual to be who they're choosing to be with this consciousness. So as you realize, as you deep dive and go within, because one of the reasons why we never come to this realization, we keep looking, like you said, Mike, outside of ourselves for the answers. We keep looking to authorities. And that's because as a child, we were told to yield what we believe to the authority, the parent, the teacher, the pastor, whoever, but we were always told to yield to authority. So after you do that for 17 years, by the time 18, you're let out on your own. You don't trust yourself. So now you're yielding to everyone but yourself. So what I'm saying, Mike, just to speak into that and to speak to your audience, 2020 was a very interesting year. We were very much quarantined and by ourselves, but I believe that was a universe telling us to go inside, meaning within, sit still and start discovering who you are. And I saw a lot of people were doing that last year. And a lot of people are doing it right now where we're really discovering to say, well, the lies I've been told doesn't make sense anymore because the job that I thought was my security, it went away within weeks and once COVID hit. And the government who I thought was going to take care of me, they gave billions to corporations and debated for 9 months whether I was worthy of $600. So I believe that all the stuff is going on is waking us up to the divine beings that we are. So we no longer can be manipulated by the oppressions or the impressions or the opinions of other people. We're beginning to wake up now to who we truly are.
Yeah. And that right there, the way you just brought that home, that was a journey. And Kirk, when you started, bro, you said, I'm going to be real. I'm going to go there. That's exactly what I was looking forward to. And I would expect nothing less. And what you just described, what I heard with that, right? You talked about going within, you really talked about what that journey means. And that's how I see it. When you continue to elevate in your own journey, you begin to discover self. You really have to reach back to that inner child. I say this often on videos I do and different interviews, especially if it's speaking on matters of spirituality. I say this often. My wife and I, we saw a documentary, and it was a documentary. I keep forgetting the name of it, but it was a documentary, and this guy, he was just interviewing different people. And one of the interviewees, he said, listen, man, the first place the devil gets to a child is through their parents. And bro, we was like, okay, hold up. So the interviewer, he said, ho, man, you got to explain that. So here's what he said. He said, who's the first person that tells you no? Who's the first person that tells you that if you do this, this is that negative consequence that's going to happen to you? Not to explore, but the first time you're suppressed, right? And the way he explained, I'm like, wow. And so when you were saying that, you said you went in that same order. You said your parents, teachers, your preacher. It's that whole system of what I call like indoctrination. So by the time you are an adult, right? We say that adult, you're 18, you're fully formed into what they want you to be. And so I think it's really going back to that whole journey of self-discovery to you to get to the point where I love the way you dunked it home. You talked about that divine power that's within all of us, that I think a lot of times you talked about it, right? You talked about these two different warring people in the 7 billion out there, right? Fear. Fear is what drives a lot of times those decisions from both sides, right? And that's that fear of, man, I can't go discover myself. Because like you said, we've been taught that we can't trust ourselves, that we're this lowly, evil, foul being, and there's nothing good in us. Well, if I've now accepted that as my reality and as my truth, then why do I want to go discover what's deep down in there, in that dark place? And so I love how you said that. One thing that jumped out to me too, bro, you were talking about, if you're not awake, and then you said, well, I don't want to say that, aware. And I hear it was along the way, I just stopped worrying about these titles too. So, what's your thoughts on like getting caught up on titles? Because I think a lot of times at first when you hear certain things, you really like, hey, yeah, this is my group. This is, now all the terms that they've been either hijacked or just so watered down to where there's woke conscious, and so that's one thing I started saying, I don't want to just say woke, but aware of who you are, aware of who you're supposed to be in your journey and where you are on that. And if there's something you need to work on. So like, what are your thoughts on that whole getting caught up on this title and broad, or just really down to the nitty gritty of who I am, who you are, this kind of title mentality?
Just to back up a second before I answer that. Mike, we've been brainwashed and programmed into mediocrity by our parents and the society, because we're coming from a place of fear. And let me put that into perspective. As a child, when you're going out for the day, kindergarten, your parents will say to you, okay, be safe, and be safe, or be careful. Be careful really translate to the child. Don't have any new experiences. Stay in your lane, stay in your comfort zone. Don't explore, don't expand. And as a child, we come from our core value is freedom. You know that the child want to run around, he want to jump off the top of the stairs. He just want to, or she just want to have fun. The core value is freedom. But by the time that child gets to about 7 years old, the parents and the society have brainwashed a child into making their core value now security. So as an adult, this job doesn't fulfill me, but I need to pay the mortgage. So it's security. We default to security. And as long as we default security, we can always be enslaved. When your core value is freedom, no one can enslave you, because now you're operating from your heart, that heart chakra that drives you towards your purpose. No one reaches their purpose by having a core value of security. Let me rephrase it, because that's not true. It is harder to find your purpose if your core value is security. Let me put it that way, because I don't like to make blanket statements. But if you're more concerned about, oh my God, if this don't work, and what if this person think that about me and that about me, you're just running around confused all day. Now, to answer your question about the titles and the different, woke or whatever, when you truly discover who you are, no title out here will fit you. And the reason why nothing will fit you is, yes, Mike, when you refer to me as Kirk Nugent. But what you're looking at, this black-skinned, good-looking black man that you're interviewing right now, is my avatar. That's all it is. It's an avatar that my spirit decides. Listen, I want to have a certain experience. What would be the best avatar to wear to get that experience? Black male, 21st century America. The experience that you want, Kirk Nugent, this is an avatar. So I understand it's like playing a video game and that avatar is out there kicking butt. But that avatar cannot do anything without the spirit. And you cannot put a title, oh, my spirit is woe, my spirit is conscious, my spirit is Black Lives Matters, my spirit is this. Now, there's certain things that the avatar will be passionate about, and the spirit, because it came here to have experiences, will be more moved towards certain experience. Like if you grew up and you were ill-treated and you were homeless, your spirit might be drawn to the idea of building homeless shelters or helping homeless people because that's part of your mission. And you experience these experiences of being abused because that's what you came to do. Go back to DMX. DMX came through this rough childhood so that he could be inspired to write the words that could have us in our deepest, darkest time, drawn for the prayer. Because there's some people who go into church and hear a minister, but there are others who their only minister is DMX because he's speaking the language of people who the minister is not trying to reach. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah,
so
definitely.
There are no accidents, and at the same time, the labels are just what we use to find our way in the dark. But once the light comes on, the label is of no value anymore because you're no longer, you're just being. And there's no word to describe the spirit that's just being. You're in your Christ consciousness. You're being godlike. And most people are terrified of those words because that's left for a being that we can never be like, when that being is actually us.
Wow.
Or we are that being.
Right. That's it too. And you know, it's kind of just putting more emphasis on that thing of fear, right? And how it shows up. And like, it really keeps you from tapping into, I guess, a deeper place of knowing yourself, right? And becoming aware of who you are and that power. Here's what I say a lot of times to people, bro. I say, listen, I think what happens is we say a lot of things, especially in religious organizations and our teachings. We say a lot of things and read a lot of things out of the Bible that we can't truly believe because we would live different. We would operate different, different things we say, greater is he that is within me than he that is in the world. But every day we operate like, oh, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that. Oh my goodness, this. And sometimes, especially when it comes to, here it is, right? We wrestle not against flesh and blood. When it comes to that, I'm like, okay, if we're reading that and we're saying that, but at the same time, we just said, greater is he that is within me, then why are we operating so much out of fear? And so I think it just holds you back from such a different path on your own personal journey.
Let's address that. Why are we operating from a place of fear? Because the matrix is so powerful, and the matrix keep telling you there's a boogeyman outside your door. There's a boogeyman under your pillow. There's a boogeyman, and it keeps, look at the news. You don't turn on the news and feel good. You're telling me there's nothing good happening in the world. It's just COVID, that, nothing good. So there's a program, because again, I don't want to go into conspiracies or anything like that, but let's just go into facts and science. When you're in fear, your body is weakened. When your body is weakened, your immune system is weakened, you're more susceptible to colds, disease, all that stuff. A sick body is good for business. A healthy body is not really good for business. So a sick mind is even better for business, because a sick mind is dependent. A sick mind believes, oh, let me just play it small, and hopefully the boss won't be upset and they won't terminate me. And when you have a sick mind playing it small, this is really, really good for business. When you have a soul that's unhealed and it can go into Amazon and just order something immediately and feels a little better, and outside waiting for the Amazon truck to come so it can feel better, that's great for business. But that's not how we did life hundreds of years ago, when we were more tribal in the community. You look at Native Americans. Native Americans were stretched out from the West Coast to the East Coast, from sea to shining sea. Did you know that as much as they were this great nation of people, there was no prisons in the United States? They didn't have a system of prison. Even Africa, when we were tribal, we didn't have a system. That's a new idea. That wasn't our idea, but we were more connected to the earth. We were more connected to our spiritual, our divine. We would spend time staring up at the stars at night because we had nothing better to do. Now, in order to stare up at the star. You got to go outside and it's too cold and nobody's doing that, or you could get robbed. So this whole system of fear takes you away from your God nature. And they always giving you something new to fear. It's always something telling you this is coming down the pike. Are you afraid yet? And as we do that, we move away from that Christ consciousness. But the thing that I say to myself is, Kirk, at some point you're going to have to leave this planet. That's just, you came in, you're going to have to leave, you're going to die. So the things that, if I'm on my deathbed right now and it doesn't matter or it didn't matter, I'm not going to worry about it in this day and age. And I've always told myself, you've went through your worst of worst days and you survived. So what could possibly happen today that you wouldn't survive? And I'm constantly aware of what I'm feeding my mind and how I'm talking to myself, because your self-talk is the most destructive. It doesn't matter what other people are saying about you, or it's what you're saying to yourself. So I monitor my self-talk in the morning. I'm always aware. I listen to certain things because, again, the Bible says faith coming from hearing and hearing comes from the word. So I put the right words in my mind so I can have the right thoughts, the right ideas, and therefore the right action. So to go back to why we operating so much from fear, the simple answer is we're not taking control of our mind. We're allowing other people to control our mind. And going back to scriptures, be not conformed to this world. This world is filled with fear, but be ye transformed. How are you transformed? By renewing of the mind. Put some new stuff in your mind. So it's all there laid out for you. Whatever religion, whatever spirituality that you're doing, it's all there. It starts with the mind. The mind is a garden. So you put the right soil and fertilizers in the garden, you will bear the right fruits. But stop allowing other people to be in your garden planting weeds. That's what we're doing by watching television, by listening to the nonsense, by feeding into the gossip, by looking on Instagram. That's what we're doing. We're allowing other people to plant weeds. I'm a good gatekeeper of my mind. You're just not going to enter my mind with your nonsense. Yeah, I'll tune you out in a minute.
Yeah, I love it. I used to always say a lot, protect your gates, protect your gates. And people say, protect your energy at all costs. But then think about what that means, right? Think about what that means to, it's not just somebody says something to you and you go off, but no, it's like, what are you feeding yourself? What are you eating? What are you reading?
And what are you saying to yourself as well?
Yes. I'm so
stupid. Yeah, I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
Never say stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And it's that right there is people say, oh no, it's just a saying. A saying, you're saying that over yourself. And now your subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and just a thought, but you're bringing that out into your universe every time. Oh, I'm broke. It's like certain things that we're just so used to saying. And like you said, I think that's the biggest thing you said, that self-talk, right? So many things, so many ways that we have this kind of self-sabotage and this negative self-talk that really knocks us back. So people say, it seems like every time I take a step, I get knocked back 2 steps. You're walking back 2 steps. Right. You just said it again, right? So now you're acknowledging the bad. One of my mentors told me that mind, that the theory of the last heard or last said, you're gonna stick to the last thing you said. So when it's, I just can't seem to lose weight, you're canceling that out, and I can't lose weight. That's all your mind is hearing. And so it's always this constant self-sabotage and negative self-talk that keeps you again from going to that next level and just being empowered. And so that journey, speak to that for me, bro. Like, what does that look like? Or what did that look like for you? At what point in your life did you realize, wait a minute, I'm in the matrix. Wait a minute, I got to take off this shell, right? And I got to kind of go on my journey of self-discovery. And I have to tap into who I really am to now empower myself to be this being that I'm truly meant to be. Because a lot of people, again, why I put that in the description about, the things that you think about, but you're afraid to talk about, or you don't know who to go to or to ask about these things that's on your mind, all these questions, right, that you have. And so what did that journey look like for you at that moment where you begin to shift things and say, because I can go back to the exact year where things started just changing for me. So what did it look like when you noticed that, that switch needed to take place, and how was that journey for you?
Sure, absolutely. So one of my saving graces, I love reading. Even as a child, I love reading. So at age 15, I was reading How to Win Friends or Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I was reading Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, all about self-esteem, the mind, the magic of thinking big. And then, just to give you a backdrop, Kirk is my middle name. My first name is Lascelles, and I hate the name Lascelles because as a child, I suffer from sickle cell, and in school, the kids refer to me as sickle cell Lascelles. So I hated the name Lascelles. Also, I always had these liver spots in my face because my liver was toxic from suffering from sickle cell. And there was an ointment that they sold in Jamaica. That was the equivalent of maybe like $3 that we could have got at the pharmacy to, get the liver spot off my face. But my dad would not invest that $3 in me. So I grew up with this idea that I was unworthy of love. I was unworthy of even $3 because when I went to school, I would starve. I didn't have any money for lunch money. So I grew up with very low self-esteem and feeling that I was unworthy of everything. As a matter of fact, as a child, not even as a child, in my teenage years up to maybe in my 20s, when we made eye contact, I would immediately look down at my shoe because my eyes were always jaundiced. They were yellow because of sickle cell. So at 19, I'm working at a job it's like a Best Buy. And like I said, I saw myself as this really ugly person, unattractive rather. And I was reading all these books that talk about the mind and how you could change your mind with the words and, all these so-called self-help book I'm reading. And I'm at this job like a Best Buy. It was a store called Tops Appliance City. I was a salesperson there in the electronics department, and the manager told us whenever the phone rang, answer the phone. Thank you for calling Tops Appliance City. State who you are and your department, and send how may I help you. So the phone rang, and I answered as a goof. Thank you for calling Tops Appliance City. This is a good-looking black man. How may I help you? And the woman on the other end said, "Excuse me, who's this?" I said, "It's a good-looking black man." She said, "Okay, good-looking black man, I need a CD player. Can you help me?" "Sure, just come on in and ask for the good-looking black man." So when I said it, my manager was walking by. He heard me, not my manager, the store manager, and he kind of chuckled to himself and went about his business. I hung up the phone. About an hour later, this woman came in. She went straight to the store manager. She said, "I am here to see the good-looking black man." He said, "Oh, Kirk Nugent, he's in the electronics department." So she went back to the electronics department, and being the only black person working in that department, she said, "You must be the good-looking black man." And I said to her, "Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven." And we laughed, right? So I had such a good time doing it. I kept doing it. Kirk Nugent, good-looking black man, good-looking black man, Kirk Nugent.
Bro, let me just pause you for a second. So this is crazy how things happen right now. I had no idea that you were going to tell this story, right, about how you manifested that and that feeling. So I just maybe yesterday, I went on your Facebook trying to find some of your live videos that you had done, right? And guess what I came across? I came across your video from 11 years ago when you were getting ready. It started in the hotel, and you were speaking to the youth, and you told this exact story. And I'm like, this is crazy. Because again, I had no idea. Right? Exactly. Had no idea that you were going to go there. And then even we were talking earlier about judgment, and one of the interviews I just did that I'm editing right now for Black Business Booming on my YouTube. The interviewee, she was like, "I'm into spirituality, so I love numbers and 11:11." And when we started, I looked down at my phone. It was April 7th, and it was 77 degrees outside. So I look at my phone and I see 777. But anyway, I had to add that in there because people don't realize a lot of times how powerful that synchronicity is. So I was chuckling as I'm hearing you say this story, like, man, I just heard this. This is awesome. So go ahead, continue, man. And just to get you back on, you were talking about that journey and that manifestation. That's how I started. How you felt. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just referring to myself as Kirk Nugent, a good-looking black man, and other people kept coming and asking for Kirk Nugent. Everybody point, that's a good-looking black man. And one day, Mike, kid you not, about 6 months later, maybe it was 4 months, I'm getting dressed for work and I'm walking by the mirror, and all of a sudden I looked, and it was no longer the ugly, skinny, scrawny kid. It was Denzel Washington, the good looking black man. And
Yeah.
nothing changed except what I was put into my mind. And once I realized that, like, wow, that was what Oprah would call a light bulb moment. So I went back to my books and I studied harder. And what I started doing now was I would close my eyes, I would visualize, and I started speaking different aspects of my life into existence. And it worked perfectly until I got so cocky, I put away the practice. Right? It's like
Mm.
you went in the gym and you work out every day. Now you're buff, you stop going to the gym. And you don't notice overnight that you're losing your muscle mass until one day, 6 months later, a year later, you look at me like, oh, what happened to my muscles? So that's what happened. I got away from the practices that took me to the level that I wanted to go, but it was always there in my mind. And we've conversed enough where, I don't believe in accidents. So I believe
Hmm.
even the low points, or the so-called low points in my life, was there to give me a different message, a different inspiration to reach someone. Because when I'm on stage, one of the things that people say about me is like, Kirk, man, you're so authentic. But the reason they refer to me as being authentic is because I only speak about what I've lived. I've been through it. I've been through the darkest of the darkest point. We could go through some pain points, but what I'm leaving with your audience, or want to leave with your audience, or let them know, is that you could start taking back your life by taking back your language. I'm not asking you to lie to yourself. Like the Bible says, let the weak say I'm strong. I understand the psychology behind that, because you're speaking stuff into existence. But if you don't believe it and you're just saying you're strong, you will never become strong. So
Mm.
here's a baby steps that I took. Instead of saying I'm broke, I said I'm pre-rich. My mind could lock onto that. Okay, that's not a lie. You tend to be rich and you're not quite there, so you're pre-rich. So I would find creative ways to reword what I'm going through. I didn't speak about if I was having a sickle cell crisis or I wasn't feeling good. I didn't speak about those stuff unless I was speaking to a doctor. I didn't go about, woe is me, oh my God, I'm sick. I never mentioned it, and I would say to myself, man, I'm looking forward to feeling better. Even in a crisis, I would say that I'm looking forward to feeling better. I can't wait to go outside again and play. And so I spoke truthfully, but I reframed what I was experiencing. And I found that even now, Mike, since this COVID thing, it's like those spiritual muscles have really, really grown, because I had time to go within and started working on them. And I'm watching my life like really synchronistically start to manifest and start to
Mm.
unfold in the way that I want to unfold. But it started with me reframing what I was telling myself. I stopped telling myself, man, I'm broke, I'm struggling, this is hard. I don't tell myself that anymore. I'm like, if it's possible, I can do it. If someone else did it, I could figure it out. I tell myself everything can be figured out, especially now with the internet. Now I can figure anything out. I can figure out a way to make this work. And I speak positively to myself, but also because I intend to be here, I treat my body right. I don't put a lot of garbage. You can't say, well, I want to live to be 150 and you're eating a lot of crap. So my actions are in alignment with what I'm speaking. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of sense, man. I love that. And that's another thing too. It goes back to that. I think saying a lot of things that we don't truly believe because we operate different. My body is a temple,
Mm-hmm.
which you treat a physical temple like you treat your body.
Right.
Um, so that is amazing. And just that whole framework, I started saying, just grand rising, peace together, not apart, a lot of different things. And people would ask me, hey, in your next video, will you talk about the reasoning behind that? And that's all it is. It's a mental shift. And I love what you said too about, I'm not asking you to lie to yourself, just reframe what you're saying, because your words are powerful. And someone will say that and acknowledge that their words are powerful. And in turn, right behind that, go behind and say something so damning to their lives. It's like, wait, you just admitted that words are power. So I love that. That literally is the process, because I think before anything, the foundation is changing what you're thinking, right? Changing what's going on in here. I always say often the universe will align to give you what you want, will, and work for. So now you want something, right? Everybody wants to to be better, to do better, to be that best version of themselves. But then getting it in your will, that's another step past that, to where now I'm reaching deep down. I'm going to start to think different. I'm going to start to exercise my mind differently to now it's in my subconscious. I wake up thinking about it. I go to sleep thinking about it. Throughout the day, I'm thinking about it. Now, what's that last step? Work for it. And you're already setting the foundation. And so now you're just going back and watering those seeds of that one and that will, that desire. So now start speaking it. And here's the thing too. I say, it's that we have that saying, fake it till you make it. And I say, listen, manifest until you make it. Manifest that thing. So now when you close your eyes and you think about that person you want to be, when you open your eyes, operate as that person. Carry yourself, hold your head up high as that person that you want to be, and watch how, again, the universe just aligns to get you to that point, to meet you halfway. So that process, man, I love that. And again, in hearing that, I think people will hear exactly what you explained. And it's the inspiration, right? That right there, it really inspired me, and it resonated with me, because one thing you said too is you got off of the practices, right? The things that got you to that point where now I'm starting to see this change. You got a little cocky, maybe a little arrogant with that process. So now I back off of it, and people don't realize that you got to keep refining that journey. You got to keep seeing where you are in that journey and saying, okay, I'm falling off a little bit, right? I came into this year, I made a YouTube video about that. Listen, I fell off a little bit, but now it's up to me to realize that and jump back to where I need to be, because I know what to do, but will you do it, right? You know the work that you have to put in, but now are you going to do the work to get there? So I love that, man. So one thing I wanted to talk about too is just the whole idea of I guess it's kind of what we talked about to start, but this group think, right? Going along to get along, even when you start to break out. So now your journey started, and that person says, I've been working on it. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. But now, I don't know, because everybody's saying this or everybody's saying that. So that idea of group thinking, what it does to you on your journey. So kind of what's your thoughts on that, and having that, being able to think for yourself, and to be able to come to a conclusion that's best for you, because everybody's different, and what's good for me may not be good for the next person. So what are your thoughts on that, in terms of people who, they're so used to that going along to get along, right? And going with the crowd, and hey, everybody else is saying it must be true. What's your thoughts on that, and just kind of breaking out from that so that you can truly soar and grow on your own?
Well, Mike, when I spoke earlier about, like, I was doing my spiritual practices and then I fell off. I fell off because of the collective consciousness. And what I meant by the collective consciousness, I'm doing the spiritual work, but there was no one around me that was doing the spiritual work. So eventually I started behaving like the group. I started thinking like the group, and all of a sudden, you fall back down. So to move away from the collective consciousness or the group consciousness, you have to, and that's a good point that you brought up, because the main thing is, you said the will, you spoke about will, right? And the work. But the will is taking personal responsibility. And what I mean by taking personal responsibility, in everything in your life, you're the constant variable. You're always there. You're in a relationship, you have a bunch of relationships that didn't work, and you say, okay, all men are dogs or all women are this, but you're the one that's a constant variable. You have to look at your role. And like I said earlier, consciousness is the only cause. So based on your consciousness, you're going to attract certain people to you. And it's not necessarily a one-on-one relationship. You might attract someone who is reflecting to you the ways that you've grown, because you're behaving differently now. But to move away from the group consciousness, that peer pressure is really, really difficult, because once you step out and you step onto a path, people, like I said earlier, people become very threatened by you being different, by you standing out. And the only way you could be outstanding is to stand out. So the society will try to beat you back into being like everybody else, like conforming. And if you're not strong-willed enough, if you don't know why you're here, what's your purpose, why you're doing, if you don't have a good why, you've heard this before, you don't have a great why behind what you're doing, you'll just fall back with the mediocre and the mundane. So I believe, and this is for me personally, I believe that the spiritual practice and the mindset is very important. If you keep working on that, it will become almost second nature. Like I don't get out of bed in the morning until I literally give thanks for my organs and my body and just waking up. And when I get up while I'm shaving, I'm controlling my mindset. I know I'm purposely running certain thoughts through my head. So it becomes a discipline. And after you do it over and over, it becomes second nature. But if you go along with the herd mentality, chances are it's not going to lead to anywhere beautiful, because the average person, even if they appear successful on social media, which a lot of people try to do, they're empty inside. They're still searching for something. They're still hungry. But when you're fulfilled and you know who you are, the things that the average person chase becomes nothing to you. A brand name clothing is garbage to you. You don't need to be in a certain clothing. You just want something that's comfortable. And the type of car, you just want something that's reliable. So the programming that's running for the collective conscious is there to make you a slave and make you a consumer. And that's pretty much all it is. If you break away from that ideology of being a consumer and start being a producer, you won't be a slave anymore. So there's so many different levels, and I don't know if we have time to get into it, but there's just so many different levels to keep you enslaved. And Bob Marley took it from, I think it was a quote by Marcus Garvey or Selassie, that he said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but yourself can free your mind. And that's the thing, we're so enslaved mentally and unaware of it. We want things that we don't know why we want it. We go along, we hear stuff on the news, and all of a sudden we're scared. But if, and I'm saying this, if you're here to do something great, or if you believe that you're here to make a difference, then you're going to have to break away from the herd. You're going to have to move away from that herd mentality. You're going to have to think differently, be differently, act differently, and you'll produce different results. And the same people that clown you and joke and discredit you and ostracize you, they will come running back when you get to a certain level and the entire world begins to acknowledge you. That happened to Bob Marley in Jamaica. In Jamaica is a Christian society, so to speak, and Bob Marley was looked upon as this ugly, disgusting Rasta who called is God. Jah, who the hell is Jah? And they dismissed him. And then Bob went to Germany and did a concert to about 1 million people, came back, and Jamaica embraced him. That's exactly what happened to Bob Marley. So again, your philosophy that most people will move away from, once they come into a certain level of understanding, certain level of knowledge, they will come seek you out. But, to thine own self be true. That's the two things I live by. One, know thyself, and two, to thine own self be true. You start working in those things, knowing yourself and being true to you, and your life will begin to unfold.
I love that. I love it. And it's amazing that know thyself, I think, is first. That's that first step, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
You can't be true to what you don't know.
Absolutely.
So it's so many people, I think they're it's the saying, man, I'm real. I'm 100%. I'm true to, but what are you true to? True. If you're true to yourself, you haven't went on that journey to even discover yourself or know who you are, right? You're true to the idea of what you think self should be. You're true to the idea of what your friend or your family or this person you're looking up to has, or who they are. But what about you? Who you are. So again, two powerful points. To thine own self be true, and know thyself, and that know thyself being the foundation, right? I always talk about planting seeds and watering. So that's that second step where you water that seed that you planted. So again, to that person that's watching, and they say, well, I guess for me, how do I go about when I'm starting my journey, but I just get so discouraged and I start to now. So me, myself, Kirk, I look back on it and I appreciate all the times where people started seeing or thinking about me differently. Or I tell people, let your light shine so bright to where the people that don't need to be in your surroundings, they'll remove themselves because they can't even stand to look at you. So for me, looking back at it, I was thankful when certain people were starting to remove themselves from or around me, or not wanting to call me or be around me, because I'm like, okay, all right, I'm shedding. To me, I saw it as shedding a layer of skin, going to a different level, right? So that's a level of growth. So to that person that says, man, well, I hear what y'all are saying, and I want to get out of the group consciousness, that group thinking, always going, with the crowd, but it's lonely. It's lonely. That's hard. What would you say to that person that says, man, this is, often people start their journey and they go back in reverse. They revert back to where they were because it's uncomfortable, because that road less traveled, right? It's I don't know, it's dark, I don't know this, I'm unfamiliar with this, my GPS is not working quite like I want it to. So they revert back and get deeper into that whole idea of blindness, or deeper into that stuck place where they were. So what would you say to that person that they started it, but then it gets hard or lonely and they just quit mid journey?
I would say fast forward and then reverse. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Fast forward and then reverse. So fast forward is go to your deathbed. You have a few more breaths and then you're out of here. What is it that you want to be said about you? What do you want to be remembered for? What have you accomplished? Whose life have you touched? What difference have you made? Once you fast forward to that and you come to the conclusion of what is it that you want to leave behind? What difference did you want to make? Then reverse engineer your life. In order to leave this legacy, what do I have to be right now? How do I have to behave? Is every petty argument we're getting into, do I always have to prove that I'm right? Do I have to yell to make my point? Do I want to be remembered as someone who always yell and scream when they get angry? And that's pretty much what I did with my life. I reverse engineered what I want to be remembered for. And I started acting and behaving accordingly. And that idea started driving my life, started moving me forward. And again, another thing is to thine own self be true. Know thyself and to thine own self be true. So it took a while to know myself. And I'm different. What I mean by I'm different, I didn't come here to walk the path that my siblings came to walk. I came to walk a very different path. And I understood that early. I came from a background of immigrants. We came from Jamaica. So to not have a job, a good job, or to have a good job and quit it, to do, what are you doing now? Poetry? Gotta be kidding me. That was frowned upon. It wasn't seen as, it didn't make any sense. But I wasn't chasing the money. I was following my heart. And I know as a salesperson, I could go there and I was always a great salesperson in the company that I worked for, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I came to do. And when I went on stage and did one of my poems and I read it, didn't even memorize it at the time, Mike, I shook like a leaf. I was so nervous. But those 3 minutes that I read the poem and my voice is trembling and my legs are shaking, it was I was euphoric, like I was high on the best drug possible. And I stayed high until I get to the mic the next week again. And I knew this is what I came here to do. I was one of the fortunate few who found my passion early. So once I knew this was what I came to do, I became true to myself in the sense that you got to take me or leave me. I'm not going to bend, twist, buckle, or bow, hoping that I'll be in your good graces today, because tomorrow you could feel another way about me. People are fickle like that. So it doesn't really matter what someone else think about you. And I was fortunate enough to have Les Brown as a mentor. And he would tell me, Kirk, someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. So that helps a lot, because one of the things that traps people into the whole idea that it's lonely and all of this stuff is because they care about what the herd is saying about them. They care about the feedback when none of that matters. One of the reasons why I never really took other people's advice and opinion is I believe at the end of the day that if there's a God and there's a judgment and there's a creator or God, if there's somebody that I got to answer to, he's not going to come to my mom and say, what happened to Kirk? He's not going to go to my dad and say, what happened with Kirk? He's coming to me. So because I'm going to be responsible for all my actions, I'm going to make sure those actions are of my own choosing. Does that make sense? So I'm not
Yes.
here, hoping to do something else that someone else would like, or I'm just doing what is true to me. I'm following my heart. And then being that I'm operating from a place of integrity because I have my rules that I operate by. I want to do to you, Mike, what I wouldn't want done to me. So I trust the feedback that the universe is getting me. I trust before when I was ignorant, if I'm trying to accomplish something and I go forward and that door is closed, I try to beat the crap out of that door to open it. Now, in my wisdom, I know that door is pointing me in a different direction. I'm not supposed to be going straight because if it's my path, it's effortless. And what I mean by if it's my path is effortless, when you're working with the divine, when you're working with your higher self, you don't beat down walls, not with your physical body. You don't sit there and worry about stuff. You move mountains with your mind. That's not a fallacy that was spoken with the Bible. If your faith is strong enough, you move mountains, but the mountains are not physical mountains. They're the obstacles that you've put in front of you. Like I think there was I don't remember the exact scripture, but who was it? They were going into the promised land, and they said, we saw these people like giants, right? And it's not that the people in the land were giants; they were just afraid of them. But once they came into their own God self and got Christ with them, they were no longer giants in the promised land. There were nobody. There's nothing. So going back to what we're talking about, you can't do any of this, Mike, if you don't sit down and really know who you are. That's the first thing. Just like you said, know thyself. Once you know thyself and you make a commitment to be true to yourself, the rest will take care of itself. You don't need no 10-step program. Know thyself, be true to thyself. Don't hurt and treat people. It's so simple. Treat people the way you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You want to have respect with people. There should be no distinction between the janitor and the president. But we say that, but we don't mean that. When people meet you, one of the first things they ask you is, so what do you do? And the reason they ask you, so what do you do? They're trying to figure out how much respect to give you. Because all you guys say, oh yeah, I'm a janitor at a prestigious university. They treat you like garbage. As I'm a professor at a prestigious university, very different treatment. So you have to be cool within yourself where you have no need to impress anybody. And once you do that, you can't be manipulated. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be, you're just good. You're standing firm. And it's a peaceful feeling. And you have a lot of serenity when you cannot be manipulated and molded by this world.
I love that, man. Yeah, that peace, right? And the Bible says the peace that goes beyond all understanding, and that is truly one of those things where you get to that point where it doesn't matter. The comparison is the thief of joy. I say comparison is the thief of confidence. You get to a place where you don't have the confidence to do anything because now you're looking at. I love that answer to that. It's because we're so worried about what Facebook, what Instagram, what Twitter, what these outside people that has nothing to do with our lives, what they think about us, right? So now we say lonely, but truly it's us worrying about what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, that's so powerful. One thing I wanted to, before we end, I wanted to speak to was the thought of the things that go on in your life and a lot of things that are happening being a reflection of what's truly going on deep down inside, right? Even on one of your videos, you talked about how people don't realize what's going on is something that because people have a hard time accepting the concept of the things that happen in my life. Somehow I attracted that, or somehow I led myself to this situation. And for whatever reason, we want to only see that or accept that when it's positive, when it's good stuff, right? Yeah, I made this happen, and thank God I was led. But when it's bad, it's like, okay, now what is it in your mind? What is it that you manifested, or what was going on inside the war inside that led you to this point or this situation? So I just wanted you to kind of speak to that and touch on that a little bit, because again, it's a very interesting thing, but hard for people to grasp, to understand that what's going on outside in our universe is a reflection of what's going on in our universe. I say the YOUNI verse, what you and I speak in and over and around our lives. So speak to that for a moment before we close out.
Sure. Absolutely. So everything is a relationship. You and I, Mike, we have a relationship just by the exchange. And all relationships are reflective. And let me speak to it very clearly. All relationships are reflective. So I was in a relationship, and one of the things about me, when I get into a relationship with a woman, she usually knows who I am before I know who she is. Like I introduce myself, I'm Kirk Nugent. She's like, oh my God, Kirk Nugent. So they usually have a background on me before I even know who they are. And I met this person, and oh my God, I was in love, Mike. Everything was perfect. We were good. Everything was flowing. And then we weren't good and nothing was flowing. And she cheated on me and I was devastated. You hear me? I was devastated. My heart was broken. I was shattered. And I just spiraled. My life started unfolding. Nothing's working. And after I finished with my pity party, I started asking myself, okay, Kirk, you know that relationships are reflective. What's going on here? And of course, the ego comes up first, and the ego's like, no, reflective, nothing. Listen, first of all, this chick cheated on you and blah, 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 and she's this and she's a Jezebel and blah. And the ego is going to run its mouth. But after you tell the ego to be quiet, and I said, well, wait a minute. I didn't cheat. So how could she possibly cheat on me? If relationships are reflective and I didn't cheat, how could she possibly cheat on me? That doesn't even make any sense. As I got quiet and allowed the spirit to guide me, the spirit said, well, Kirk, here's exactly what happened. Everything was fine. You was making money. You were making money. And the colleges that you were speaking at sort of dried up. The engagement sort of dried up. And what happened when you're low in funds, Kirk? You're the first person to not value yourself. You're the first person to abandon you. You're the first person to not feel good about you. You're the first person to feel like you're not worthy of anything because you have not healed these childhood complexes that tell you you're not worthy of anything good. And all this young lady did, she reflected it to you. She was nothing more than a mirror. You can't blame her any more than you could blame a mirror when you see there's a coffee stain on your shirt. You got to go change your shirt. You got to go wash your shirt. You can't just look in the mirror and go spray some Windex on the mirror. So that was a very painful lesson for me. But I realized then that all this person was reflecting to me was the ways in which I didn't love me. And most people will find that hard to admit because especially a woman, if a woman is in a relationship and a man cheating on her, she's mad. It's very rare that you'll find somebody be reflective and say, well, here's a role that I play in it. Even with my son's mother, when that relationship ended, I had to call her years later and told her that, listen, looking back on life, I see the role that I played in the demise of our relationship. I see how I contributed to that. When, 20 years ago, if we spoke, I would have told you it was all on her because I couldn't see my role. I wasn't willing to go within and look. But if you go inside, you'll see that the thoughts and the ideas and you not loving yourself, because again, our parents were the first one to love us conditionally. So we start loving ourselves conditionally. Our parents only love us when we're good, when what they call good. If we're being bad or misbehaving, then the parents withdraw the love from us. They either, do something to punish us, or you could tell they're upset and you feel like that love has been withdrawn. It's not unconditional, it's conditional. If I want that love, I have to behave a certain way. So we start loving ourselves conditionally and life begin to reflect it out to us. So everything is reflective, but a lot of times you have to be at a certain level of consciousness to see these things. Let me summarize it this way. You take an apartment complex with 100 stories. The person who's standing outside that building can maybe see a block down the road. There's another person who's on the 10th floor that's seen maybe 20 blocks down the road. The one on the first floor outside the building won't believe what the one on the 10th floor is telling him. Then there's a person on the roof that's seen maybe 50 miles out or 40 miles out. And the one on the 10th floor is like, no way. So as you grow in consciousness, you see wider and wider and wider. And as you see wider and wider and wider, you realize that you are the constant variable. You're the constant cause. Everything comes from the way you feel about you, the way you behave about you, and the way you talk about you. You change those things, the way you feel about you. You start loving you regardless and know that you're worthy and stop acting like a damn compromise in these streets and know that you're the prize. Everything changes. You start feeling and behaving about. But once you do that, Mike, you start doing that with the people that you meet. You will see their value when they don't even see their own value, because now you're not looking at them through the lens that the Matrix told you to judge them by. You're seeing the true divinity in them, because that's what you see when you look at yourself. And you know that everyone is dealing with a challenge. Everyone is struggling. They're going through something, and they're just trying to find their way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh man, that and like you said a certain level of consciousness to acknowledge that, but I also think along with that, it's a certain level of maturity to get to that place where you can actually sit back and say, okay, now let me see what's my role in it, what led to me. And that's a process, man. That's a healing process, right? To go in that deep down when you're at your most vulnerable state. And I wanted to speak to that because, of course, people have went through a lot in this last year and different things going on. And I wanted to speak to that to encourage people to really reflect, like we talked about at the beginning with the pandemic. It was a time, especially last year, where we go inside. We were with ourselves, right? We had to sit. Now, a lot of us chose not to deal with self and go into that journey, right? And go into those who did, you found out a lot of things about you. And I think that's how you really get to that point where you can start that healing process and to really grow. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted you to touch on that, man. And I really appreciate you for just breaking that down like that, because it's so true. And I think somebody needs to hear that, right? Because this is one that I'm definitely going to share out and just from time to time, because again, I titled these, and I'm very careful about these, who I want to talk to. That's why I call them impactful conversations, because I want them to make an impact for someone, right? So that's the thing, bro. Anything else you want to leave the people with, man? I appreciate you, man, for taking the time out on a Friday evening to talk with your bro, man, and just to really dive into some things. And like you said, man, we can go on and on these topics, man, diving into books and different things. And one thing you said that I love, that I was like, mental note. It's almost like I wrote the note in my head. You spoke to the things, how we can really dive into so many things that enslave us, right? Especially from the mind out. And so, it's like, hey, we may need to revisit that, but thank you so much for doing this, bro. Anything you want to leave the people with, man, or anything you got coming up or going on?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I would like to, because I'm hearing this a lot, so I want to address it. People talk about, especially in this isolation, that they're lonely, right? They're lonely. And as crazy as it sounds, when you start getting to know you and loving your own company, it's almost impossible for you. I'm alone a lot, but I'm never lonely. And the reason why I'm never lonely, because a lot of times we're so looking to entertainment. We turn on Netflix or whatever. We're always distracting ourselves. I've been to other people's house, and there's always something playing in the background, either the TV or something. There's some noise, never silence. Once you start sitting with yourself and start examining yourself and getting to know yourself, you will never be lonely. I can tell you that. It's not an anomaly with me. I've spoken to other people who have done the journey, and you're not lonely. When you're with someone else, you enjoy their company and you enhance each other, but you're never in a place where, man, I'm alone and you're bored. You're never bored. It's something else. I am never, ever bored. So to really go to the next level, and what I mean by the next level, things are changing on this planet. It's very subtle. when you look back, you'll say, well, everything is the same over, but 20 years ago, the planet was very different. When I was growing up, there were phone booths. There was a lot of things now that kids 20 years old have no idea they exist. I've seen YouTube
Right.
videos and people like a phone and be like, what is this? And they're like, how do you hang it up? So things are changing. And what I mean by things are changing, the energy on the planet is changing and the energy is accelerating. And what I mean by that is the things that used to suffice and fill you, it's not going to do it anymore. The people who were drinking and smoking and doing whatever they had to do to heal that pain, if they don't attend to that pain, it will take them out and they will leave the planet, because the universe is saying it's time to heal. Because the reason we have all these wars and everything that we're doing is because we're living in a world of unhealed people. You take the time to heal your trauma, you won't want to fight anybody. You take the time to heal what's ailing you, you won't want to hate anybody. It won't even matter to you. You won't care that someone is a different race, a different religion, a different creed. But because we're walking around unhealed and we're brushing up against each other, we keep bleeding all over each other. So one of the greatest things you could do for this planet is to heal yourself. Go within and internally work on your so-called triggers, because people get triggered when I say this. If you're over 40 and you have some trigger, you have a lot of work to do, because the person triggering you is not doing anything to you except exposing where you need to heal. So instead of being upset, you tell them, thank you, I needed to see that, let me go work on it. If you're over 40, I know this is triggering for people, and you're still triggered, turn off the TV. You got a lot of work to do, a lot of work, because no one is supposed to be able to trigger you. That doesn't make any sense anymore, but I get it. I get it. But you were given 12 months last year to really work on yourself. Have you invested that time? Because your time, your money, and your thoughts must never be spent. They must always be invested. Your time, your money, your thoughts, never spend them, invest them. Make sure you get a return on them. So that's what I like to leave people with. If they want to find out where I am or get any of my books, it's my name, KirkNugent.com. You can go to my website. I have a book there called From Depression to Destiny. That's a great book to get. Do not get it from Amazon, because Amazon is deep in my pockets. Get it from my website. I'll mail it to you. I'll sign it. If you're outside the United States, then you can get it from Amazon. Let them pay for the shipping. But that's it, Mike. Invest your time, your thoughts, and your money, and you'll get a return on it. Heal. If nothing else, if you don't do anything else in 2021, heal. And watch how beautiful your life becomes. Heal.
Love it, man. This is where I need the sound effects, the blowhorns, because you just brought that home so nice, man. And of course I gotta get that book. And man, what you said right there, just a perfect way to end it. That time, your money, and your thoughts invested. Wow. Yeah, I love it. They say your network is your net worth, and I just love talking to people that are on a certain level, right? I say certain level because some people may see it as this and that, but because it should, when you talked about from the beginning, right? The difference between motivate and inspire. You should leave a impactful conversation inspired, right? And like that light should shine on you also and say, you know what? Yes, this is some things I grab some things that I need to do that I can work on. And I think that's the constant evolution of growth inside you, right? That'll show up outside. So I love it, bro. I appreciate it, man. Again, thank you so much to you and for everybody that's watching. And definitely go, KirkNugent.com. Go get that book. I'm going to do it. And I appreciate you, man. I look forward to connecting with you. And when you get back on your Fridays, man, they used to bless me. So,
give me a couple weeks, man. I'm definitely going to do that again. But before I do it, you're going to teach me about StreamYard. So we can do this on so many more platforms. So see, you're blessing me just by having me here. So thank you, Mike. This was such a blessing, such an inspiration, and we should definitely do this more often, man. It was a pleasure. I definitely enjoyed this. And I know there are no accidents. Whoever needs to see this and hear this, they'll see it and they'll hear it.
Nice, nice, for sure. All right, people. Well, we will see you all next time. Peace.
Take care. Peace.